one example of what I mean. When I say we don't want to be theoretical with the kids, we want them to go right down where they are the innocent victims, but the earlier 2 generations, 3 generations have spoiled the water for them. So we do believe that work will happen well when we have field visits through them. I think that different groups from different countries in LKF will decide how to do this themselves. You know, this can't come top to down. It has to come from where the people are and where what they see is possible there under the circumstances from the bottom up. With this last part, I feel that we can commit ourselves to exploring how do we work out the field assignments. Field assignments can be very powerful, they can affect the government. As a case in point, there are 5 river basins in my city. We have selected an 18-kilometer long river basin called Ram Nadi. And we just got the topmost Infosys. Infosys is the topmost information technology giant in India. We got them to start working with us on marking the basin. And when we mark the basin, every single well in there is marked. Every person will be given an identity card saying that they belong to the river basin. And identity with the river basin is created, where you can mark every 70 types of assets are there, whether it is a well, whether it's a housing society, whether it's an industry. And this actual marking, which is almost an auditing for the work being done by government there, is something which is being put into place. Over there, how do you involve the kids? I'll end with this. We have decided to get the kids to do a census of trees in that area. It's an easy work for the children. You just make a grid, and the children will be the ones who will have counted the number of trees in that small basin, name the trees, mark the trees with those chips which can be seen on the screen, and at the end of the day, we want them to know that they did something which is unique in the river basin.
Okay, I just want to mention that in my school, Ines was 2 years old. I took her to my school where I work. She planted a tree, and I called this tree Ines. And when now she is 16 years old, and and she studied at the at the school where she planted the tree, and I showed her her tree, but her tree is bigger than Ines.
This is precisely.
It's just a symbol.
The case I was saying is when the children do something like an entire river basin and mark every single tree, it affects the government policies also. See, I'm rather heading towards this, that the children working under proper guidance can do work which the government has failed to do. And having done that, the impact on government policy begins and they get their first lesson. The lesson is a lesson in governance. Because going beyond intellectual understanding from the head, deep involvement from the heart is a lesson. Finally, we have to do the thing with our hands. And instead of depending on the powerful, we find something which the powerful have ignored, like the census of a tree basin, the census of a river basin where trees are not yet counted, and get to schools and get that job done. They get the confidence that, yes, we did it where the government did not. Yes, we did it where the so-called powerful did not. Somewhere in that sense of confidence which comes from there is the confidence not only about planting the trees, but running the show thereafter. They think the government didn't do it, we did it, perhaps we can run the show ourselves as we grow. I'll conclude here, if you permit me, with a prayer. Because I come from India, and because the focus of our talk today is the Lord. I will just say a very simple prayer, and in 3 lines perhaps say it in English. Sadgamaya tamasoma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amrutam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This is a prayer to the Lord. who witnesses not only this meeting, but
Yes.
all such meetings
Yes.
going on all over the planet. Because
Amen.
we are creating a shield.
Amen.
No, we are not in less number. These meetings are going on all over the world because there are mothers who care,
That's right. That's right.
and there are men who care about
Yes.
protecting everybody. So this prayer is to pray to God. Take us from darkness to light.
Amen.
Take us from ignorance to knowledge.
Amen.
And take us from the weakness of mortality and mortal decisions
Yes.
to the immortal laws of the kingdom of God. Om Shanti Shanti, and let there be peace as a result of this. Thank you.
Okay, now, he's such a perfect segue into our next speaker, but before I even talk about that, I must tell you that part of the reason for the conference is linking culturally and linking children, and Ines and I are going to talk a little bit about cultural projects a little bit later. But I have a friend, we were linked by our grandson. And we came from two different worlds. She's much pushier and really much older than I am. And I haven't seen her in a few weeks. And she's my very best friend, so wave, Ginger.
Hello.
I'm so happy to see you, and I'm proud to have you. That's her son, Lynn.
How do you do?
Fine, thank you.
It's wonderful to just be here, but everything that Binu said, I agree with. And I don't always agree with it, and I agree with you. It's a presence, it's a collaboration, it's a part of the world as it is. And our next speaker is somebody who I'm honored to be a part of her project. It's the Mother's Project. Now, I'm not going to say one word. I'm going to let her speak about it. And this is Angela Fox, the mother of Joshua.
I want to say that, I had not met Bernard before, but everything that he said, there were so many points that were touched on that are related to the Mother's Project, that I'm so grateful that he opened his talk by explaining the logo and explaining a little bit about the sentiment. First, I'm going to sort of start backwards, because I don't know how many of you know who Josh Fox is, or whether or not you've seen Gasland and know anything about fracking. Do people who know about fracking? Because that depends on how I start. Do you know about it?
Yeah, I do. She may not.
There are people who don't know anything about it.
Ginger knows because I taught her.
So you didn't know anything about it. Basically, I'm going to segue and explain a little bit about it, but I want to give you a little overview of what the Mother's Project is. It actually emanates from that point at which Gasland actually stops, because there's a movement afoot that was created by the documentary film Gasland, that was issued in 2010, won at Sundance, and went all the way up to being nominated for an Oscar. But what I like to say is the most important award it was given was the John Lennon Yoko Ono Award for Peace. To me, that was the most significant, because really it is about creating peace, because right now wars are being fought over gas and oil. The point that has to do very much with the earth and thinking beyond those points of career, me, my job, and my family is the universe and the earth. Now, right now, America is the playing field for the oil and gas industry in terms of this shale, which is either the Marcellus shale, the Utica shale, or the other shale that's in the Midwest, name I'm not remembering at the moment. But basically, it is going to be all around the world. Right now, France has banned fracking. Bulgaria has banned fracking. So one wonders, well, why are they banning it, and what is this about, and what does that have to do with the Mother's Project? Basically, hydrofracking, to give you a bit of history, in 2005 became exempt from the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, and the Superfund Law. The Superfund Law, which says that if you spoil a piece of property or you ruin something while you're doing this industry, you're obligated to repair it and pay for it. So what happened there under the Bush-Cheney administration, Cheney, who is part of Halliburton, created what they call the Halliburton loophole, which to me is probably one of the most heinous crimes ever committed in government to the people of America and now the world. Because this system is a flawed technology that ultimately ruins on a couple of levels, and on several levels. From start to finish, it's a death-producing process. So I'm going to make it very simple. Usually when you drill for oil, you go straight down, and you get the oil, and that's it. Now what's happened here is that you're not going straight down. They have discovered that the shale rock, the layers of shale, which are horizontal, contain within it gas that can be brought out. How can it be brought out? It's brought out by taking drinking water, fresh drinking water, which the world has a shortage of, taking that fresh drinking water, mixing it with chemicals that are poisonous, that are cancerous, and fine sand, and I'll segue into how you get the fine sand, and putting it, going horizontal, drilling through the aquifers, and basically penetrating, in some cases, the casings fail, and therefore it penetrates. And what you see, the signature piece in the film, is the person being able to light their tap water on fire. So what has happened is the methane, the gas, has penetrated the well water, which most people in this part of the world, when I say this part of the world, I mean the Northeast, most of us have houses, we get our water from groundwater from natural wells. Of course, in New York City, we get it from the mountains. And in parts of the West, it's also gotten from the mountains. So this situation is different in each area depending upon the geology. But what you have is another way of polluting. So not only do the casings fail, the casings being what is binding this gas as it comes back up, the casings are made of cement. Anybody who's ever lived in a house knows that cement is porous. Is it supposed to last the duration of the well's life? Is it supposed to last the duration of the earth? Well, it's supposed to last forever, because you never want to have the gas penetrate and come mix with your drinking water. So that's the first way it's polluted. The second way is, how do you get rid of the wastewater? We have two kinds of water, and you have the debris that comes back up that's created when you dig the hole. You have the water that's gone down, which is already polluted, and you have being brought back up from the earth, that which should remain in the earth, which is the radioactive material, the naturally occurring radioactive material that comes back up. So you have what they call produced water, and you have the flowback water. And you have the debris. What do we do with it? In the state of Pennsylvania, which is the state that in the Northeast that has been most ravaged by fracking, you take that and you try to get rid of it. And as in many countries, we think of our estuaries as places to throw our garbage, which clearly it's not. And so, you take this toxic waste, and you pollute the Susquehanna River so that it bubbles methane, or you take it and you put in what they call injection wells in Ohio and West Virginia. It's caused earthquakes, and in Blackwell, London, it's caused, in England, Blackwell, England, it's caused earthquakes as well. So you have an inability to dissolve, to get rid of this wastewater and this toxic waste. In the state of Pennsylvania, it spread over 7 states getting rid of this waste, because there was not enough places they could put it in the state of Pennsylvania. So there's a website called Frack Tracker. They're now beginning to track where this wastewater is going. Now here we are in New York. The governor of this state is planning to frack the southern tier. The southern tier is 5 counties, farmland, dairy farmers, agrarian, poor communities. Our tourist enterprise is where we go for vacations from the most beautiful part of this state. In planning to frack that part of the state, you are now not only going to pollute that area, those people will suffer, but you're coming, and we are downstream from this. So to what Bernard had said, where is the thinking there? The thinking is not for the larger good. The thinking is for the pocket. The oil and gas industry is subsidized by the government. It has very good lobbying ability, so that it has been able to lay the groundwork in that 2004, 2005 legislation that exempted this particular technology from the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, and the Superfund law. So here, in this part of the world, we're concerned about the pollution on the ground, but in the West, in Colorado, where I visited with the Mothers Project, they're concerned about the air because they emit the methane, which we will be concerned about too. They emit this and it's poisoning the air. The irony is, here we are talking about kids. In the state of New York, the schools upstate have already leased their land to the oil and gas industry. In Colorado, which has also been ravaged, I saw with my own eyes large pools of toxic water right next door to residential areas. The rally I went to when we launched the Mothers Project, and I'll backtrack around about that, was in Erie, Colorado, where the mothers, 4 mothers, grouped together to fight for their town because the well that there were, one well pad, which will house 15 wells, was going right in their schoolyard. So if you look at this room, you can imagine, say, something that's 5 times the length of this. This is the area where the kids will be coming down that road to go to school. The school is here, and behind that, right in the same area, is the well. So they were fighting this, and this is unheard of in Colorado, because that's the West, that's oil and gas country. In Pavilion, Wyoming, if those of you who saw the film, the cowboy in the film talks about how he inherited the land that belonged to his wife's family. They grow the hay that feeds the cattle that we get our meat from. That hay is being irrigated, and the cattle is drinking this polluted water. Now, at the time of the film, it hadn't been polluted. In this past year, the aquifer was penetrated, and that town, Pavilion, Wyoming, is receiving bottled water from the EPA because they found all of the chemicals in the water. Children living in those homes. In Pennsylvania, the same thing. Receiving bottled water doesn't help because they're bathing in the water. And we know the skin is porous. It's the largest organ that we have. So ultimately, we could look at the Barnett Shale. That was the name I was thinking of. The Barnett Shale, where they have been doing fracking for some time. The cancer rate in that area of Texas has gone up, whereas the rest of the state has not gone up, it's gone down. So we're looking at a process that is totally without thought for the humanity that is living in those areas, without thought for the devastation it creates in getting rid of the wastewater. And we're saying, well, why is this happening? It's interesting because when Jeanette pointed out about how they went to each person in the community and they got the volunteers, this is the same method by which Barack Obama was elected. We worked for that campaign. We had 15 people staying in our house in Pennsylvania, where my property is, and we spent a week. There was not a house that we didn't visit. So he used the combination of the internet or media and the door-to-door, person-to-person, knock on the door and vote. And many of those people in the poor community said to us, we don't vote, it doesn't matter to us. And the idea was to bring out the vote, to tell them, no, this is going to matter. So it's ironic that I'm standing here talking about this. Ironic because 40 years ago we built that house ourselves and were approached, if you saw the film, with a lease, to lease the land. So the land is leased, not owned by the company, because the liability remains with the owner of the land. How do they accomplish this? How do they go around and get this? They do the same system. It is the same system you used. It's the same system Barack Obama used to get elected. The oil and gas industry went to each and every household and sold them a bill of goods and said, look, this is what's going to happen. You're going to get this signing bonus of $5,000. You're going to make $500,000, and it's only going to be looking like a little fire hydrant on your property. It won't mean anything. It won't affect you in any way. You combine that with the ads that you see every day on television. You see the ads of clean energy, which it is not clean, because when it's burned it will cause more damage to the climate change that's going on, more injury to the to the atmosphere than the CO2. It's not a clean burning energy, but this is the bill of goods that the American people are being sold. We've lost our way, in a sense, because basically there's a combined effort on the part of the large corporations to go influence the legislators with the money, go from house to house and get the leases signed, because here you are in agrarian communities and farmers who are not making a hell of a lot of money. They're being sold a bill of goods about the job. Somebody asked me before, well, what are you offering as an alternative? Well, if you look at our website, we're not just presenting the story of what's happened to what I call the victims who are now suffering, who've lost their water, and their land and their house is worthless without water. And secondly, the largest insurance company nationwide is now going to be refusing to reinsure any of those homes. Banks are not giving mortgages on those homes. So you now have, this is all true, I'm not making it up, you can Google it and find out. The fact is that it is a situation that is becoming economically devastating. Industrializing farmland and making it, in a place like Colorado, where you live here and you can look out your window and you see a well, or your kid is going to go to school and there's going to be 5 wells and they're going to breathe that air. So we have a problem. So the problem, what I thought was the next step, we have a movement, yes, there are anti-frackers, etc. And I didn't even talk about the radon in New York City, but I'll mention it. We go back and we say, well, who can we try to, how can we get a tipping point? Because right now, over 1 million people have seen Gasland, and without Gasland, there would be no movement. So the movement is growing. There's more and more activity, but it's not at a tipping point. It's not like the anti-war movement, and I'm speaking of the Vietnam War. We're not talking about getting rid of the draft, which we had a tipping point for that, or the civil rights movement, pre-anti-war movement. We had a tipping point there too. Do we have an environmental tipping point? We don't know. But my point is, if we get to the mothers,
That's right.
because the mothers are the ones that are closest to the ground in terms of, when your kid gets sick, what are you going to do? You got to figure out why they're sick. Well, this is what the mothers in Erie did. They had to figure out why their kids were getting sick and why they were getting sick. So the Mothers Project really started from that point of view, to say, let's see if we can create an organization. Yes, there's all these different organizations, but let's create a global coalition of mothers. And what you said before about womb power. So that doesn't mean you have to be a biological mother. We're looking for the womb power. New, used, unused, overused, it doesn't matter. We want the womb power. That's the point, because we feel that that is a segment. It's got to represent 50% of the population wherever you go, approximately. And it's a segment that we can appeal to and say, as parents, this is your responsibility to create, to look toward the next generations. When we talk about this type of pollution, we are talking about, and there was an article that just came out about that they expect, not just the casings to fail, but they expect the groundwater in Pennsylvania to be ultimately destroyed by the migration of the methane that will take place. If you look at the map of the United States, you will see where the shale is. And every time I look at the Northeast, it looks like a dragon. It has a dragon shape. I don't know if you've seen it. That's where the shale is. Big part of this country, of the United States. Other parts of the world, wherever they find it, they want to go after it. They feel that this is going to be like the revolution. Once we run out of one type of fossil fuel, we'll go for the rest. So the Mothers Project is saying all fossil fuels and nuclear, because nuclear, you have to mine uranium in order to do the nuclear. In mountaintop removal, you need this fine sand to frack. Remember I said it's mixed with water and sand. So they're using mountaintop removal to get this fine sand. So you have not just mountaintop removal to get at the coal, mountaintop removal to get at this fine sand. So when a place like Sierra Club comes out, that's the largest environmental organization that there is in the United States, only this year came out against fracking, against natural gas, what they're called natural gas, which is really methane. Only came out this year because they were caught with their hand in the cookie jar. They took millions of dollars from the oil and gas company. And so they had a campaign called Beyond Coal. And Beyond Coal was for natural gas. So it was like ridiculous. When they got caught taking money from Chesapeake, I think it was, the big company, all the members got on the phone and said, what are you doing? You can't do this. You're supposed to be an environmental group. So there again, where's your moral value when you're an environmental group and you turn around and you take money from Chesapeake and you come out and you attempt to fool the public with the notion that you're beyond coal, which is, we know, the dirtiest fuel when you burn, right? So, and now you're going to perpetrate gas as the way that we should go, rather than look at what we have. Look up in the sky, you got a sun. Is it going to burn out anytime soon? I don't think so. So, somebody asked me before, well, what about sun? What about sun, wind, and biofuels, which you can make out of biological waste? You can make it out of the cooking oil. That's one of the companies picking up the cooking oil that's used from restaurants, which they have to pay to get rid of, and using that and making biofuel. So you have legislation that says you have to have 3% or 4% or 5% being renewable. In other countries, it's not 3%, 4% environment. It's 90%. We want you to have 90%. They have goals by a certain year, and I'm not good with these statistics unless they were in front. By a certain year, you have to have 90% or 100% renewable. In Germany, they have made legislation to build passive housing. What is passive housing? It's a way of heating your house, even counting the energy that comes from your own body. It has to do with conservation. Nothing, no fire. Conservation, solar energy, whatever. It exists, it's doable, we're just not promoting it. So the Mothers Project is saying, let's not just be against something, and there's two parts. Let's not just be against something, let's be for the sustainables. And on our website, we present that. Here's what's happening, here's where we can go. That's the political part, the advocacy part. The part that has to do with Lynn's kids is the second part, which is the educational part. Now that part is going to come out of the political part. It's going to have its own entity called the Mothers Project Educational Forum, and it's there to create curriculum. Curriculum that has to do with sustainable energy, with telling the truth about the fossil fuels. We're going to use teams that are created by Lynn's kids by the foundation, to move forward with curriculum that can be taught in all the countries that Lynn's kid is involved in, but most of all, right here in our country. When I visited Erie, Colorado, one of the things the women told me was they were so upset that junior achievement, which is the way industry comes into the schools and does a little thing, education-wise, junior achievement was teaching the kids, and this is adolescents, high school kids, about the business world of oil and gas. And they were furious. We don't want that. We want them to be taught something else. Did they have that at their disposal? No. Here in the city, there are some teachers in Brooklyn that have created amazing curriculums on teaching about the fossil fuels and teaching about the renewables, using plays, using video, using drama. So basically,